Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to review the Dynamo strings by Thomastik Infeld. A high-end violin string which is also on the more expensive end, but I will tell you later in this video why I think that they are really worth their price. As always when I test equipment, a big thanks to polychord.com, link in the description under this video. Let's go into detail of the individual strings first. I put those strings on last summer. Over a year I have them on my violin now, and this is what they sounded in the beginning. And this is what they sound now. The Dynamo strings from Thomastik Infeld are a really interesting concept to me. When I first put on the Dynamo strings, I was really satisfied with them. I played a lot of projects. I haven't practiced that much last year because I was busy making my new online course called Sound of the Violin, which you can check out. There's a link in the description to my courses on violinshortcuts.com. But I have played some projects. I have played solo with an orchestra and a choir. I have played a cover song on those strings. I also practiced a little bit of Bach on those strings. And just lately I played first violin in a string quartet with those over 1 year old strings. And I have to say, they still project quite well. We will go into detail right now. First of all, the Dynamo strings are available for violin and viola. Of course, we are talking about the violin version right here. Let us start with the highest string, the E string. There are two different versions of the E string. One is called DY01, which is the one I played, which is the normal E string. And the other one is called DY01S, and the S stands for a little bit like a solistic version of the E string, so it's more bright. So my E string wasn't the brighter version, but the more for orchestral players and blending in with other instruments version. The pressure of the E string on the violin is 17.9 pounds of pressure, which is in the medium-high range of tension for an E string. The DY01S version has a higher tension at 18.1 pounds of pressure on the violin. To me, the DY01 E string, so the orchestra standard version of the set, is sound-wise a very balanced string. It is powerful and has a very good projection, I think, but it is not screaming like some other strings are. And also it doesn't sound thin. It almost sounds like a gold E string, but it shares some other characteristic with gold E strings. It has a little bit of a tendency to whistle in some chords, but you can always play around that when you adjust your bow position and your pressure on the string. Let me demonstrate to you some notes on the E string. So that would be the E string, some high notes for you. I think the E string has a very dense sound for an E string. But let's now come to the A string. The A string has an aluminum winding, and with 12.1 pounds of pressure on the violin, it is more in the mid-range of tension for an A string. Interestingly, many of the Thomastik Infeld sets, like the red one, the blue one, and others as well, have exactly the same pressure. Maybe it's the same string, but maybe it's also that Thomastik Infeld has a concept for the A string which to me feels like that it's working quite well. It's a good transition from the D string to the E string. And it's also in itself powerful enough to project even in high positions, so that you can play high positions and switch to the E string if you like. And also the playability is great. So the A string doesn't feel as a high tension A string, which it also isn't. So to my ears, the A string is really a good compromise between power and also still a good playability. To me, I also think it has a very pleasant sound. It gets a little bit dampened in the high positions, but also that can be a problem of the violin itself. And I know my violin, it's not the best register for my violin up on the A string. Let's talk about the D string. To me, the D string is a really good string also. This D string has a silver winding, which normally isn't my choice of D string. I also have the D string with the aluminum winding, but now for this year and for this test, I mainly tested the silver D string. When I researched the details of the string set on the Thomastik Infeld page, which I can highly recommend for you because they have a lot of detailed information there, but also some funny things. So for example, one thing we will find out right now. They say that the aluminum D string can reduce the wolf note on the G string. So for now I have the silver D string on the violin, and let's see how bad my wolf note is. Normally it's around the C or C sharp on my violin. C is today it's the C. Yeah, as you can hear, it's pretty bad. And now as a comparison with the aluminum D. I did it, I changed the D string to the aluminum D string, and you are live here with me now, and we will experience if the aluminum D string from the Dynamo set will have an impact on the wolf note on my G string. I think it's very obvious that it's not fair to test a new D string with 3 other strings which are over a year old. I will still play for you one scale and then we check the wolf note. This is the Dynamo set with the aluminum D string. I mean, that wasn't the most pleasant sound I just did there. I would say the wolf note changed a little bit. It is now between the C and the C sharp. There is the worst spot. And I have the feeling the C and the C sharp both are a little bit easier to play. So it seems that the aluminum D string really has an impact on the wolf note. I wouldn't expect it to be similar on every violin, but it most likely has to do something with the diameter of the string and therefore also the pressure, which is on the bridge, what can shift the position of the G string wolf note. I think it is obvious that this string sounds new and the rest of the set is of course old. I would never just judge a D string or any string by the first impression. So you can think what you want about these sound samples I just gave you, but I think the string has to be played to fit in the set. Maybe I will post later a short video on my Instagram and also here on my YouTube where I will show you how the D string sounds when it's a little bit more played in. Overall, really impressed by the impact it has on the wolf note. If you are talking about the material of the strings, the silver D string normally has lesser projection than an aluminum D string. And because my violin has a quite dark sound on the lower strings anyways, I prefer to have a little bit more of an edgy D string. So in the past I always used the aluminum D strings when I get the chance to do that. With this set though, I really forgot about that it is a silver D string even, and it feels very, very soft under the left hand, which always the silver D strings do, but at the same time it has a really good sizzle to it, and it didn't lose this sizzle over time. So I can say for an over 1 year old string, this is very impressive for a D string also, and for a silver D string especially. The pressure of the silver D string is 10.4 pounds of pressure. And the aluminum D string version has the same pressure. So it's just the material and also the diameter of the string, which is, I think, higher when you have the aluminum material compared to the silver. With the G string of the Dynamo set, I always felt really satisfied. It has a lot of warmth to it, a good core, it is flexible, so it plays really, really well. It has a good resistance to the bow, and also it has projection when you want projection. So doesn't that sound perfect to you? To me it is a really good string. Let me show you some notes on the G string. What I really like about this G string is that it projects really well also when you play in a pianissimo. Some strings, especially some thicker strings like the G or D string, will sound really sizzling when you play them pianissimo and lose their core of the sound, but not this string set. And I have noticed that with the Thomastik Infeld lineup, the strings from Thomastik Infeld have a different concept, for example, compared to Pirastro strings. Pirastro strings usually feel like they are much stiffer, and therefore the response to the bow is really different. With the Pirastro strings, we can now take the extreme example of the Eva Pirazzi green strings. They are really beautiful sounding, but they have somehow this on and off character. So you either have a sound or you don't have it at all. Let me demonstrate what I mean. It's like this. A little bit like Sul Ponticello sound when you want to play really quiet. And then when you want to play normally, suddenly there comes a sound, but you don't have the possibility to go from a quiet sound with a core building up all the sound. So the possibility of different tone colors on these strings is really amazing, and especially on the G string. You also want to know how the G string plays in high positions. I can tell you it's really comfortable to play, but my wolf note on the violin is so bad that I rarely use those high positions on the G string. But as you can hear, the string works fine, even in those high registers. So let's talk a little bit more about the set in general. and about my feelings about the string set, because you can always look on certain aspects of the different strings, but in the end it matters how the string set works together. I know that in the past I have said in some videos I really like those strings, I really like those strings, and I have to say that again, I really like those strings. But you have to even differentiate between other videos I made. For example, I really like the Eva Pirazzi Gold strings. It's a really amazing set, but the really amazing sound lasts for like 3 or 4 months if you play really much. And this set of strings, I have it for over a year. It sounds different than the Eva Pirazzi Gold, of course. It's a different concept. It's a little bit of a smoother string, I think. It has a great playability, also for the bow, good resistance. It's hard to break the strings with bow pressure when you play chords, for example. The only thing which is a little bit of a minus for the Dynamo string set is that the E string has a slight tendency to whistle. But also, when you play the strings over a year, you should change the E string at least a couple of times. This will always freshen up the whole set, and this will always give your whole set the ability to breathe again. I didn't do that, and still this set to this day sounds to my ears phenomenal for a over 1 year old string set on my violin. I really have never experienced that. I sometimes get so frustrated with old strings that I change them even after 4 months. That happened when I played the Eva Pirazzi green strings, which really lose their sound quality drastically after a certain period. Before that they sound amazing, and they are still used by soloists up until this day because they are sounding so amazing. But if you can't afford, or if you don't want to change your strings every 3 months or so, I really recommend to go for a string set which lasts much longer than, for example, the Eva Pirazzi green strings. So the longevity of the strings, the Dynamo strings, really makes up for the price. I don't know how much the strings are in your area, but I would guess they are around double or even more the price of a normal dominant string by Thomastik Infeld. But I can tell you, sound quality wise, playability wise, and also the durability, they are the best strings I played so far. The balance of the set sound wise is really good. The transition from the lower to the higher strings over the D and the A string, to me it's really working in different positions as well. So I can really tell you, you will not regret buying this string set. And I would personally even consider settling for the string if I wouldn't have already the next string set waiting to test. This is the Rondo Gold strings by Thomastik Infeld as well. I'm really interested in trying these strings as well. I a little bit have the feeling that the Dynamo strings can't be surpassed so easily, even from the same manufacturer. I think the Rondo Gold strings will be a little bit more mellow, and the Dynamo strings were already in the medium-high mellow range. They have really good brilliance, but when your violin is a little bit of a darker sounding instrument like mine is, if you go under that, if it's even more mellow, it could be a problem if you want to project, for example, as a first violin in a string quartet, or if you play solo with an orchestra or something like that. But still, I think I'm really interested in trying out more strings from Thomastik Infeld. They have really grown on me through the last tests I did. I think their concept of making strings is great. The strings feel much more like wound gut strings than other synthetic core strings from, for example, Pirastro, and also from Larsen, which also have different concepts. I think all those strings are really great. The manufacturers are all having a good concept, and I like about Thomastik Infeld that they stay in their concept. They don't, at least I think so, they don't try to copy other string manufacturers' concepts, and that makes them so great at what they are doing. They are imitating the gut-like sound, but the synthetic core string is now a thing of its own, I think. Certain qualities, synthetic core strings, which are not even possible with gut strings. Still, I think Pirastro for gut strings, for wound gut strings, and also the Eva Pirazzi Gold or Eva Pirazzi sets are amazing strings, but it's not the same durability. It's far from that. So it's a question of what can you afford, what do you want? Do you want your strings on your violin for over a year? I think this string set, when I look at it, I could even play it much longer. But I can see the winding is a little bit damaged already on some of the strings, not to the point that it gets loose, but of course new strings would sound better. But could you play these strings another year? I definitely think so. Just from the sound point of view, from the freshness of the sound, I think you could play those strings even longer. They don't deteriorate anymore. They sounded great from the beginning to this day. Of course, they changed a little bit, but over a year. So thank you for watching. I will continue making YouTube videos, although I must say that making videos for my online course have taken a lot of time of video making for myself. I also have to practice and to teach locally. I really enjoy making videos for you guys, and there will be a lot of tutorials coming as well. And if you are interested, join my new course Sound of the Violin, and also of course thank you polychord.com to sponsor me those strings. If you are in Europe, most definitely give the shop a look. They have good prices. I was always very satisfied with the service of this shop. So polychord.com is the sponsor of this video, so to say. I hope you're doing well. Have a great time practicing. See you in the next video. Bye bye.